CQDX, CQDX, CQDX. This is Havana calling. CQDX, CQDX, CQDX. This is Radio Havana calling all shortwave listeners and radio amateurs. Welcome to... DXers Unlimited, Radio Havana's weekly feature dedicated to the fascinating world of radio communications.
Hola amigos radio aficionados, welcome to this, the middle of the week edition of DXers Unlimited, coming to you when the sun is blank. 0 sunspots in sight. This Tuesday UTC day, no sunspots in sight. Solar flux was also very near the baseline level at just 72 units. According to solar scientists, the baseline level of solar activity is between 64 and 66 units. So you can see that 72 is very near the solar minimum. It's getting near. Yes, it's getting near. Solar minimum just around the corner. In a short time, maybe less than 2 years. I am Arnaldo Arnicoro, radio amateur CO2KK, the host of this radio hobby program that is on the air twice weekly to help you enjoy this wonderful way of spending our spare time. With our radios. And now item 2, the very low nighttime maximum usable frequencies that are now prevailing provide listeners to the 3 tropical bands with much better signals. Listener Carl from Bonn, Germany commented in a recent email sent to me that he was picking up several new tropical band stations that are making their way all the way from Brazil to Germany for a period of about an hour during the gray line propagation enhancement period. Now item 3, more email messages coming with information about the radios and antennas in use by you, DXers Unlimited listeners, to monitor the radio spectrum. I was very impressed by several of the photos showing very sophisticated listening posts, and also by 2 photos of a radio that is a replica of a regenerative receiver that was popular in the very early days of shortwave radios. It was known as the Twin Flex. And another one that was also popular was the Doerle, spelled Delta, Oscar, Echo, Romeo, Lima, Echo. Doerle, regenerative. It was assembled by early days radio experimenters, and by the way, the name Doerle originated from the radio hobby enthusiast name that designed the circuit, who was never again mentioned by Radio Magazine ever. A popular version of the Twin Flex regenerative receiver uses a dual triode vacuum tube, with the half of it working as the detector and the other half of a single-stage audio amplifier. Regenerative receivers were very popular among shortwave listeners and amateur radio operators since the early 1930s, and circuits were published by radio magazines and amateur radio handbooks until the early 60s, when they simply disappeared. But now, a new trend is now in progress, with several solid-state regenerative receivers becoming the logical follow-up of the early days vacuum tube radios, and some of them work very well. I must add that when well built and adjusted, a regenerative radio receiver is capable of excellent reception, very good performance, with good frequency stability and selectivity. That's the ability to separate between stations. They can provide razor-sharp selectivity. And more about simple homebrew radios coming up later when DXers Unlimited's middle of the week edition continues. I am your friend Arnie Coro, radio amateur CO2KK, that's my ham radio call sign, Charlie Oscar 2 Kilo Kilo, in sunny, beautiful Havana, Cuba. We are enjoying fantastic spring weather here. Back with you in a few seconds. This is Radio Havana Cuba coming to you via shortwave frequencies on the 60, 49, 31, 25, 22, 19, and 16 meter bands in 7 different languages. And I'm also announcing here now, today, that soon we will be on the air using a frequency on the 41 meters band. That is on the frequency range between 7.3 to 7.5 megahertz region of the shortwave spectrum. Yes, we will soon be operating again on 41 meters. And now here's our next radio hobby-related item. This is Ask Arnie. Pregúntaselo a Arnaldo, la número 1, the most popular section of DXers Unlimited, according to statistics kept by our correspondence department. Today's question was sent by listeners Gary in Missouri, USA, and Eric from Aalborg in Denmark. Beautiful city, Aalborg, by the way. I've been there. They both want to know more about my recent comparisons between several of the most popular shortwave receivers in use by DXers Unlimited listeners around the world. Well, amigos Gary and Eric, it seems like the old Sony first and second generation general coverage digital receivers are still very popular, although models like the ICF2010, also known as the ICF2001 in some countries, are now definitely collector's items. The smaller ICF7600 and different models of the 7600 like the 7600D, their different versions are also found at auctions, and they can cost a lot of money. Another trend that is winning interest now is to buy all vacuum tubes communications receivers and try to do a major overhaul to them, something that can only be done by highly qualified persons that have access to professional test instruments. They need both things, know-how and the test instruments required for the alignment. My advice to anyone interested in improving shortwave reception is to avoid very inexpensive receivers. Avoid them by all means. They are literally pieces of junk. And although they may pick up a number of stations, reception will be poor, radios will overload with high-intensity signals, and also the quality of the workmanship is usually very poor. And although they may be picking up a number of stations, reception is poor, the radios overload with high-intensity signals, and also the quality of the workmanship making them is usually extremely poor, very poor quality, with many of them failing after just a short time of regular use. My advice is to try to learn more about electronics. Go for it and become capable of assembling simple and moderately complex shortwave receivers and accessories. But that will take quite some time from the moment you decide to start learning to the time when you can really assemble even a simple low-power sound radio. And now, Item 5, Radio Havana Cuba's Spanish language program for shortwave listeners, by the name of En Contacto, has now added coverage to amateur radio topics, and it is now, and this is an announcement, under my full responsibility. I'm sharing the show with Radio Havana Cuba's announcer Marta Rios for a 15 minutes once a week program that is on the air during the weekends over Radio Havana Cuba in Spanish. New sections like Cuban frequencies and frequencies of the world are now on the air, and the email messages received from listeners of our Spanish language programs have been very encouraging. En Contacto is, of course, somewhat different from DXers Unlimited, but I'm slowly adding some of the features of this show that have proven to be of interest to our listeners of DXers Unlimited. And this is Radio Havana Cuba. You can send your signal reports and comments about this and other programs to info@enet.cu. Again, email address info@enet.cu, or via airmail to Arnie Coro, my last name is spelled Charlie, Oscar, Romeo, Oscar, Arnie Coro, Radio Havana Cuba, Havana Cuba. By the way, yes, we do appreciate your reports very, very much. Thank you for sending them. Now our next Radio Hub-related item, the possibility of installing an amateur band's VHF, UHF, or microwave repeater aboard a very high-flying solar-powered drone. It's now perfectly feasible, perfectly possible to do it. Recent experiments with medium-sized solar-powered drones that can be kept hovering over a certain area and capable of obtaining all the power required from solar cells show that such a project is definitely quite possible. As a matter of fact, the solar-powered drone can climb to altitudes well above the stratosphere, where weather-related events are very rare or even non-existent, so it will have a long life. The drone, equipped with a 2 meters band or 70 centimeters band FM repeater, can provide coverage to an extensive area, something that is perhaps the most relevant objection to the use of such high-altitude repeaters at heights above 100,000 feet. When such a super high-altitude repeater is in operation, it will effectively block the use of those pair of frequencies within a very large area under it, and that can prove to be an inconvenience. But despite this evident problem, it seems like in the not-too-distant future we will see medium-sized drones flying at least at 80,000 feet, carrying digital repeaters to be used during emergencies. By providing them with sophisticated signal encoding systems, many of the problems can be bypassed. And now, at the end of the show, a short form propagation update and forecast. Amigos, solar sunspot count was 0 today, but it may move slightly up by Wednesday. Solar activity is extremely low, just 72 solar flux units today, and staying around that number for the next 2 to 3 days. No minor geomagnetic storms are going to happen, and no solar flares of any particular significance are expected. I hope to see you all at the weekend edition of DXers Unlimited next Sunday and Monday UTC days, amigos.
And that's all for today. This is Arnie Coro, Radio Amateur CO2KK, your host here at Radio Havana's DXers Unlimited, saying 73 and very good DX.
And the last item on the menu today is the Arts Roundup with